Okay, guys, we are recording and we're doing the Crucible. I have Tony on the line, and we just started with the revision for the Crucible. You don't have to see my face here, but you definitely need to see the screen. So this would help. So we're just going to start over. This plot or this drama plays itself out in the town of Salem. That's important to note. I'm just making some notes here. A group of girls go dancing in the forest with a black slave named Tuba. While dancing, they are caught by the local minister, Reverend Paris. Now, one of the girls, this is Paris's daughter, Betty, falls into a coma-like state. A crowd gathers in the Paris home while rumors of witchcraft fill the town, having sent for Reverend Hale, who is an expert on witchcraft. Now, Paris questions Abigail Williams, who is the girl's ringleader, and she is Paris's niece. So remember, Betty's Paris's daughter, but Abigail is Paris's niece. Okay, and she admits to do nothing but dancing in the forest. Now, let's talk about the next thing. While Paris tries to calm the crowd that has gathered in his home, Abigail talks to some of the other girls, telling them to admit to nothing, to anything. Now there's a new person on the block that enters the scene, John Proctor, who is a local farmer. He then enters and talks to Abigail alone. The question always is why? Let's see if I can get this out. Just want to make this bigger. This is giving us problems. Let's see if we can undo this. Okay, fine. Let's do this. Let's take this out because I'm trying to. There we go. Now, so while Paris tries to calm the crowd down that has gathered in his home, Abigail talks to some other girls, telling them to admit to nothing. Now, John Proctor. Let's go here. No, let's undo this. I am still trying to just edit content. Let's not do that. Yeah. No. Sorry, this is filling. There we go. And let's go back here. Yeah. That will help us. Let's do this. Sorry, guys. I just want to make this a bit more readable. Get it? Let's do edit content. Is this gonna help us? See what it does? Okay, fine. Let's see if we can make that bigger. I'm working on something else. Let's go home here. That will help us. There we go. Where are we now? We are doing edit. I'm working on a video. That's the problem. Just want to make all of this bigger. And I'm not winning. Why is that the case? Can we say select all here somewhere? No, I can't. I'm going to do this. Save as, nope. I'm going to do this. Yeah. Sorry guys. Export PDF. Let's see if that works. So the current file is not saved. I want to save it before this operation. No, I don't want to do that. Hopefully we'll get a Word document somewhere for it that I can edit on. Okay, it's still busy doing its thing. There we go. Let's go on. So, John Proctor, who is a local farmer, then enters and talks to Abigail alone. Unbeknownst to anyone else in the town, while working in Proctor's home the previous year, she was engaged in an affair with John Proctor. That's Abigail. which led to her being fired by his wife Elizabeth. Okay, so that's Elizabeth is Proctor's wife. So you have Proctor and Proctor is entangled. So there's a triangle that's happening here. Proctor, his wife, and Abigail, she was working and she had an affair with him. Abigail still desires Proctor, but he fends her off and tells her to end her foolishness with the girls. So Betty wakes up, and this is, what's his name? The Reverend's daughter. She wakes up and begins screaming. Much of the crowd rushes upstairs and gathers. Let's have a look at this. There we go. Rushes upstairs and gathers in her bedroom, arguing over whether she's bewitched. A separate argument between Proctor, Paris, this is an important thing to note. The separate argument between Proctor, Paris. You need to ask yourself why. Why is there this particular argument? Let's make that bold. Okay, there we go. Between the argumentative Giles Corey and wealthy Thomas Putin soon ensues. In other words, there's this particular argument between these three guys. Why? Proctor, Paris, and Giles Corey. Now, this dispute centers on money and land deeds. Okay, so there was an issue between the three of them. The argument is about money and land deeds. And it suggests that deep fault lines run through the Salem community. In other words, there's a line that runs, the deep fault lines between the community. So there's sort of a blurred line. Is this your land or is it my land? And then there's issue with land and money. As the men argue, Reverend Hale arrives on the scene to examine Betty. So I think Reverend Hale is the guy that is the, remember, having sent for Reverend Hale, he was an expert on witchcraft. So, okay, Reverend Hale arrives and examines Betty. While Proctor, let's go back there, Proctor then leaves. So remember, Proctor is the guy who had the affair with Abigail. Hale quizzes Abigail about the girl's activity in the forest. He grows suspicious of her behavior and demands to speak to Tituba, which is the black slave. Now, after Paris and Hale interrogate her for a brief time, Tituba confesses to communing with the devil. And she is hysterical. And there we go. Hold up. Do you know that was such a crime in those days? I want this back. Where are we now? There we go. And she is hysterically accuses various townsfolk of consorting with the devil. So she's saying, listen, I have spoken to the devil and everyone is involved. Suddenly Abigail joins her, confessing to having seen the devil conspiring and cavorting with other townspeople. Betty joins them in naming witches, and the crowd is thrown into an uproar. So now they start blaming everyone in the town with regards to being involved in witchcraft and who the witches are. A week later, alone in their farmhouse outside of town, John and Elizabeth Proctor, the couple, they discuss the ongoing trials and the escalating number of townsfolk who've been accused of being witches. So remember, this case now goes to court. Elizabeth urges, where are we now? Elizabeth urges her husband to denounce Abigail as a fraud. He refuses and she becomes jealous.
You are fast, so... You are fast.
Am I too fast?
I'm just got to do my best to commune with the devil.
Okay. So you just have to, when you make notes, like now you're going to say the Tubai, she's the black slave.
Yeah.
Then you make a note, she confesses to communing with the devil. and then she calls out, accuses a lot of townsfolk. She's saying that they are also involved with the devil. Let's quickly have a look. Anything else here? Let's see if there's. You can go ahead. You can do your thing. See how far you get with that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, proceed. And then say John and Elizabeth.
Elizabeth and John. Yeah, so his husband and wife, they have a talk about what's happening now with everything.
They are home there.
Yeah, at their home, and they're talking about the trials. Then she says, "Tell everybody that this woman is a fraud."
Yes.
Just have a look at this. I'm so sorry. I want to see if anything, what happened to this other thing that was saved somewhere. Safi, visualize everything. No, that's not what I want to see. Okay, and then John says no, he's not going to. He refuses, and she becomes jealous. This is Elizabeth, accusing him of still harboring feelings for her. She's saying you're still joining with this girl. Now Mary Warren, their servant, and one. So there's another name, Mary Warren. She's John and Elizabeth's servant. And one of Abigail's circle returns from Salem with news that Elizabeth has been accused of witchcraft, but the court did not pursue the accusation. So how crazy is this? Now their servant is in cahoots with Abigail. She comes into town, and then she says she returns from Salem, and she tells John and Elizabeth at their home that Elizabeth has now been accused of witchcraft, but the court did not pursue the accusation. So there's a lot of crazy things happening in the court now. So everyone is now being witches, accused of being witches. Can you imagine how crazy it must be in that town? Mary is sent up to bed, and John and Elizabeth continue their argument, only to be interrupted by a visit from Reverend Hales. So this is the Ghostbuster. While they discuss matters, Giles Corey and Francis Nurse come to the Proctor home with news that their wives have been arrested. So now Giles Corey and Francis Nurse, which is another guy, they now come to John and Mary and they say, our wives have been arrested because their wives have now also been accused of being witches. Officers of the court suddenly arrive and arrest Elizabeth. So now it seems like all the men, like their wives, who have now been accused, they're now going to sit without wives because all their wives are witches. This is madness. So they come for Elizabeth. Now, after they've taken her, Proctor browbeats Mary, insisting that she must go to Salem and expose Abigail and the other girls as frauds. Can you see that? He's actually saying to her, go tell them. Like that's what she's saying to his servant, to Mary. And just come clean with this thing and then expose Abigail. Go back to Salem and expose Abigail and the other girls as frauds. The next day, Proctor brings Mary to court and tells Judge Danforth, this is the judge, that she will testify that the girls are lying. Danforth is suspicious of Proctor's motives and tells Proctor truthfully that Elizabeth is pregnant and will be spared for a time. So because she is pregnant, she will be spared. Proctor persists in his charge, convincing Danforth to allow Mary to testify. Mary tells the court that the girls are lying. When the girls are brought in, they turn the tables by accusing Mary of bewitching them. Okay, so now Mary turns on the girls. And when the girls come in, they say, Mary's the witch. So imagine there's five of you saying she's the one who bewitched us. Now, furious, Proctor confesses his affair with Abigail, and I think he's crazy to do that, and accuses her of being motivated by jealousy of his wife. This is a very what's the word I'm looking for? Twisted plot. So, to test Proctor's claim to see if it's true, Judge Danforth summons Elizabeth and asks her if Proctor has been unfaithful to her. Now, this is where it goes haywire. Despite her natural honesty, she lies to protect her husband's honor, and Danforth denounces Proctor as a liar. See if you jaw. Now, meanwhile, Abigail and the girls. So here's the plot. So he comes in and he brings his servant in that was in cahoots with Abigail and the rest of the girls. He brings her into court and he tells the judge, this girl is going to confess and tell on everything. So as she says that the girls are lying, now they bring the girls in. They're saying, here's a witness that says she was with you guys and you guys are lying. They all turn on her and say she's the one who bewitched us. Proctor doesn't know what to do and he gets mad. His wife is pregnant now and he says, okay, I'm gonna come clean. I jawed with Abigail. She's jealous now. This is an act of jealousy. It's called a woman scorned, and now she's trying to get everyone down. And then so now, okay, the judge says, okay, let's see what your wife has to say. He calls in Elizabeth, his wife, and he asks the wife, was your husband unfaithful? Did he, Joel? She's saying, no, he didn't, Joel. She's protecting her husband's honor. And that's where the judge says, hold up, Proctor is the liar here. But meanwhile, Abigail and the girls again pretend that Mary is bewitching them, and Mary breaks down and accuses Proctor of being a witch. It just goes crazy. Now everyone is a witch. She's a witch, she's a witch, he's a witch, he's a witch, we're a witch, everyone's a witch. So there we go. So this time Mary breaks down and accuses Proctor of being the witch. Proctor rages against her and against the court. He's arrested and Hale quits the proceeding. Now the Ghostbuster quits this whole thing because he thinks, no, there's a hell of a mess happening going down here. Now there's a break. The summer passes. So there's some time that now between this whole thing that happens. The summer passes and autumn arrives. The witch trials have caused an unrest in the neighboring towns. And Danforth grows nervous, which is the judge now, because this thing has just been going on and on and on, and he can't reach a verdict. Abigail, in the meantime, she's run away, taking all of Paris's money with her. You go, girl. That's how you break up. That's how you do it. Then Hale, who has lost faith in the court. Remember, this is the specialist in exorcism, who has lost faith in the court, begs the accused witches to confess falsely in order to save their lives, but they refuse. Danforth, however, has an idea. He asks Elizabeth to talk to John into confessing, and she agrees. Conflicted but desiring to live, John agrees to confess, and the officers of the court rejoice because they're not just so glad that this thing is going to come to an end, but he refuses to incriminate anyone else. This is Proctor. And when the court insists that the confession must be made public, Proctor grows angry. This man doesn't know how to do it, man. He tears it up. Just keep a straight face, guy. Just lie. Say, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. and he should take her down with him. Then Proctor grows angry, tears it up, that is the confession, and retracts his admission of guilt, despite Hale's desperate pleas. So the judge, that reverend is saying, Just do it, please, guy. Proctor goes to the gallows with the others, and the witch trials reach their awful conclusion. So there we go. That in a nutshell is the book.
Mm.
You have the gist of it.
Yes.
Okay, now we are going to talk about the themes, the symbols, and the motives. Let me get out of this document because I'm trying to get to a document that works for all of us. Let's go. No, let's not save that. Let's see if we can find a document called the Crucible here. Maybe because we saved it somewhere. Don't go there, guys. Be good, please, man. Were we here? Where did we find it? We found it here. English please start. Yes, we found it here. New folder, new folder, new folder. I think we were busy here. It's trying to be smart and then I messed up everything. That is amazing. I think we were here. I'm so sorry. Hopefully this will open up. Is that what I'm looking for? No, that's not what I'm looking for then. It's this one. Okay, there we go. Let's talk about this section. Okay. Let's talk about the themes, symbols, and motives in this particular instance. The theme is defined as a main idea or underlying meaning of a literary work that may be stated directly or indirectly. We know what a theme is what this thing is about. There are major and minor themes. Let's not go through all of that. Let's talk about the theme of, to start with, intolerance. You want to write that down.
Mm.
There's the theme of intolerance. How are people intolerant with each other? I'm just trying to should put something here. You don't have to see my face. Okay. The crucible is set in a theocratic state. Please understand that word, theocratic. In other words, in which the church and the state are one. So remember, now what we have is the church and the state. They are not one. But way back then, religion actually was the law. And the religion is a strict, austere form of Protestantism known as Puritanism. That's why when we started out this document, it said that in the Puritan town of Salem, what is that? It means that it is a very conservative town that is run by the church actually, and the state they are one, and the religion is strict or is a strict austere form of Protestantism known as Puritanism. Because of the theocratic nature of society, theocratic means you have democratic and then you have autocratic, which makes it, and then this is theocratic that has to do with God. So it's run by the church, nature of society, because of the moral laws and state laws that are one and the same. Sin, here's your deal. Sin and the status of individual souls are a matter of public concern. So remember, I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure you will remember that way back then, when everything was a sin, it was everyone's business, and they treated you as an outlaw.
Mm.
So then there was a lot of judgment that happened. Let's do this again. I think I messed this up again. I want to go back, take this off. Yeah, okay, fine. There we go. And let's get rid of this. There we go. So there is no room for deviation from social norms, since any individual whose private life doesn't conform to the established moral laws represents a threat not only to the public good. Now we're talking about intolerance, eh? So nobody tolerated sin. If you just looked at someone, that's why you must know that is why Proctor's wife covered for him, because they were not going to tolerate that sin, and he would have been killed anyway. So, there is no room for deviation from the social norms, since any individual whose private life doesn't conform to the established moral laws represents a threat not only to the public good but also to the rule of God and true religion. In Salem, everything and everyone belongs to either God or the devil. Dissent is not merely unlawful. That means if you deviate from that, it is associated with satanic activity, and that is why sorry, and that is why this was so bad. In terms of, that's why the thing about Satanism and witchcraft was really a taboo thing. This dichotomy functions as the underlying logic. Dichotomy means di means two. Let's have a look at, so that you know what the word dichotomy means, and me too. Dichotomy. Where are we? Dichotomy meaning a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed. A repeated branching into two equal parts. Okay, in other words, two parts, black and white, either sin or your God. So this dichotomy functions as the underlying logic behind the witch trials. You were either for God or you were for the devil. As Danforth says in Act 3, a person is either with this court or he must be counted against it. The witch trials are the ultimate expression of intolerance, and hanging witches is the ultimate means of restoring the community's purity. So, in other words, if you were involved with witchcraft, it was the ultimate expression of intolerance, and hanging those witches it was like a way of purifying. It was the purge. Okay. The trials brand all social deviance. In other words, if you deviated with a taint of devil worship and thus necessitate their elimination from the community. What is all of that saying? It's saying the following: that they needed to clean out the town. The trials brand all social deviants. Everyone who socially does not comply with worship unto God, they were tainted with devil worship and thus necessitate their elimination from the community. So when they talk about intolerance, this is your discussion. Okay, next up. Then there's the motive of hysteria, like craziness that happens in this town. Another critical theme in the Crucible is the role that hysteria can play in tearing apart a community. Hysteria supplants logic. You know what the word supplants mean? Let's do that. This is how I do my life. Let's see if there's any supplants. Supersede, replaces. Okay, so you can use the word hysteria replaces logic. Okay, and remember, when you're between a rock and a hard place, nothing makes sense, and enables people to believe that their neighbors, whom they have always considered upstanding people, are now committing absurd and unbelievable crimes, communing with the devil, killing babies, and so on. In the Crucible, the townsfolk accept and become active in the hysterical climate, not only out of genuine religious piety, but also because it gives them a chance to express repressed sentiments and to act on long-held grudges. Okay, so they're saying it's so hysterical that now if I had a grudge against you, like Abigail had against Elizabeth, and those three men that fought about land and money, that they start making crazy accusations against each other. And it gives them, it's almost like, I will use religion against you, because it gives them a chance to express repressed sentiments and to act on long held grudges. The most obvious case is Abigail, who uses the situation to accuse Elizabeth Proctor of witchcraft and have her sent to jail. But others thrive on hysteria as well. Reverend Paris strengthens his position with the village, albeit temporarily, by making scapegoats of people like Proctor, who question his authority. Okay. Then the wealthy, ambitious Thomas Putnam gains revenge on Francis' nurse by getting Rebecca, Francis' virtuous wife, convicted of supernatural murders of Anne Putnam's babies. It's crazy. Then, in the end, hysteria can thrive only because people benefit from it. Hysteria can only thrive because people benefit from it. It suspends the rules of daily life and allows the acting out of every dark desire and hateful urge under the cover of righteousness. Okay, you get that? Are you still there, Tony?
Yes, I'm trying to catch up with you.
Okay, no, you have to stop me if need be. But what I can also do is I can also send this document to you.
Please also send it to me.
Yes, I'll do that. Now let's talk about the issue of reputation. Reputation is a tremendously important. It's another theme. So theme number one was intolerance, how intolerant people became with each other. Hysteria, and then the issue was religion actually, because they lived in a Puritan state. Then the issue of hysteria, how if everybody is in a tight spot, they will blame everyone for everything. Then now we are talking about reputation. Let's talk about people's reputation. And in those days, reputation was everything. Reputation is a tremendously important part in the theocratic state, Salem. Let me look at this word for you so that you don't have any theocratic. What it means. Work with me. There we now come here. So that you have a good grip on it. Relating or denoting a system of government in which priests rule in the name of God. So religion rule, that's a theocratic state. Okay. Reputation is tremendously important in theocratic Salem, where public and private moralities are one and the same. Public, what you do in public, and what you do in private are one and the same. In an environment where reputation plays such an important role, the fear of guilt by association, in other words, if I am associated with, let's for instance say, a guy who does crime or corruption, that's what they call fear of guilt by association, becomes particularly pernicious. Let's get that word for both of us. We don't have to use these words, but let's find pernicious synonyms for it. Pernicious, having a harmful effect, especially in gradual or in a subtle way. Let's use the word damaging. Let's use that word. So we are going to say, okay, let's read it again. In an environment where reputation plays such an important role, the fear of guilt by association becomes particularly damaging. Focused on maintaining public reputation, the townsfolk of Salem must fear that the sins of their friends and associates will taint their names. In other words, if they say, for instance, If you and I are friends, so that's guilt by association, then and you, for instance, steal stationery, then I will withdraw from you because in other words, people will also think that I do the same thing. So focused on maintaining their public reputation. I just want to maintain my reputation. The townsfolk of Salem must fear that the sins of their friends and associates will taint their names. Various characters base their actions on the desire to protect their respective reputations. Here's the few characters. As the play begins, Paris fears that Abigail's increasingly questionable actions and the hints of witchcraft surrounding his daughter's coma will threaten his reputation and force him from the pulpit, because remember, he's the reverend. Meanwhile, the protagonist, John Proctor, so he's the protagonist, in other words, he's the main character, and the antagonist is the one who goes up against the main character. Meanwhile, the protagonist, John Proctor, also seeks to keep his good name from being tarnished. Early in the play, he has a chance to put a stop to the girl's accusations, but his desire to preserve his reputation keeps him from testifying against Abigail because his wife kept on saying, "Just come clean." At the end of the play, however, Proctor's desire to keep his good name leads him to make the heroic choice not to make a false confession and to go to his death without signing his name to an untrue statement. "I have given you my soul, leave me my name." That's his reputation. He'd rather die, he cries to Danforth in Act 4. By refusing to relinquish his name, he redeems himself for his earlier failure and dies with integrity. Okay, now let's talk about the motives, and you can again make just note so that you would at least know what you're looking for. Motives are recurring structures or literary devices that can help to develop and inform the text's major themes. In other words, what are the motives? Why are we doing this? Why are we saying this? So there's a motive for empowerment. The witch trials empower several characters in the play that are previously marginalized in Salem society. Great. In general, women are obviously marginalized. So the girls are looking for empowerment, okay? In general, women occupy the lowest rung of male-dominated Salem and have few options in life. They work as servants for townsmen until they are old enough to be married off and have children of their own. In addition to being thus restricted, Abigail is also a slave to John Proctor's sexual whims. He strips away her innocence when he commits adultery with her, and he arouses her spiteful jealousy when he terminates their affair. Because the Puritans' greatest fear is the defiance of God, Abigail's accusations of witchcraft and devil worship immediately command the attention of the court. Okay, let's get that again. So now Abigail is marginalized because, remember, her integrity is at stake. She's a nothing really because she was John Proctor's slave. She had an affair with him. He commits adultery with her. He now arouses her jealousy when he terminates their affair. She's saying, "Ooh, I'm your side chick, boy. You're not gonna get away like this." And then because the Puritans' greatest fear is the defiance of God, like to go up against God, Abigail's accusations of witchcraft and devil worship immediately command the attention of the court. By aligning herself in the eyes of others with God's will, she gains power. We're talking about the motive of empowerment. She gains power over society, as do the other girls in her pack. So both her and the other girls are gaining power in society, and her word becomes virtually unassailable, as do theirs. In other words, they have the highest word now. They gain all the power. Tituba, whose status is lower, wow, than any than that of anyone else in the play by virtue of the fact that she's black, manages similarly to deflect blame from herself by accusing others. So Tatuba does the same again. She manages similarly to deflect blame from herself by accusing others. Okay, we only have a bit more to go, and then we are out of here. Now, let's talk about the accusations, the confessions, and legal proceedings. The witch trials are central to the action of the crucible. And dramatic accusations, we're talking about accusations, who was accused, who confessed, and then we're going to talk about the legal proceedings. Okay, so the witch trials are central to the action of the crucible, and dramatic accusations and confessions fill the play even beyond the confines of the courtroom. In the first act, even before the hysteria begins, we see Paris accuse Abigail of dishonoring him. And he then makes a series of accusations against his parishioners, in other words, his congregation. Giles Corey and Proctor respond in kind, and Putnam soon join in. In other words, they now accuse as well, creating a chorus of indictments even before Hale arrives. In other words, they are now saying things about Paris as well. The entire witch trial system thrives on accusations. The only way that witches can be identified, and confessions which provide the proof of the justice of the court proceedings. Let's read that again. The entire witch trial system thrives on accusations. It's the only way that witches can be identified, and confessions which provide the proof of the justice of the court proceedings. So the only way is through accusation and through confessions, and that's the only way that witches can be identified. Proctor attempts to break his cycle with a confession of his own when he admits to the affair of Abigail, but his confession is trumped by the accusation of witchcraft against him, which in turn demands a confession. Proctor's courageous decision at the close of the play to die rather than confess to a sin that he did not commit finally breaks the cycle. The court collapses shortly afterward, undone by the refusal of its victims to propagate lies. Okay, let's look at the word propagate. Propagate. Propagate means to breed specimens, to grow, to cultivate. Okay, so when we say, let's go back to what they are saying. The court collapses shortly afterward and become undone by the refusal of its victims to breed lies. Okay, now let's go. What symbols have they used here? The witch trials and the MacArthurism, whatever that is. Let's quickly just read through it and see what we can get from there. There's little symbolism within the Crucible, but in its entirety, the play can be seen as symbolic of the paranoia about communism that pervaded America in the 1950s. Several parallels exist between the House Un-American Activities Committees rooting out of suspected communists during the time. No, let's not. This is unnecessary. But I do want to come towards the end where it says the following. However, one can argue that Miller's concern in the Crucible is not whether the accused actually are witches, but rather with the unwillingness of the court officials to believe that they are not. In light of the McCarthyist excesses which wronged many innocents, this parallel felt strongly in Miller's own time, was also felt strongly in Miller's own time. Okay, fine. So I think that in a nutshell is what happens in this particular play. Now what we have done is we've discussed what the overview of the play, we've discussed who's who, we've discussed the motives, we've discussed the themes and we've discussed the symbols. And so if you just go over this document, everything will start making sense to you again. I'm going to I'm going to maybe take a break if you don't mind. Then we can come back in 10 minutes. And then so it's now 10:37. Let's come back at 10:45. Let's do that. 10:45. Or maybe, do you want to go come back at 10:15? What do you want to do? Tony, are you there? Any news? Just have a look at this.